The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time might just be the most important video game of all time. To those only somewhat versed in the Zelda series, that might seem like extremely high praise. And those familiar with the series probably rolled their eyes at such a statement, as they've heard it time and time again. Ocarina of Time has definitely transcended the Zelda series when it comes to fame and reverence, a fate I could only ever see being repeated by the insane success of Breath of the Wild. But while Ocarina of Time is not the best-selling game in the series, far from it given its release originally on the N64, it still tends to be the most revered and favored by fans. But why is that? It's not the biggest Zelda game, it's not the longest, it's not the best looking, it's not the oldest nor newest. It is the definition of middle child. And yet this game did something every middle child dreams of: be noticed. Ocarina of Time is important to the series and gaming as a whole for so many reasons. This game completely innovated 3D gaming for action games just as much as Mario 64 did, platformers. This game innovated how you move through a 3D space, introducing the soon-to-be industry standard of Z-targeting, the way to move the camera and have fluid combat in a 3D space. This is still used by action games like Assassin's Creed and Dark Souls to this day. But this game did something much more than just be the first 3D Zelda. It did it while also presenting a legendary adventure and gameplay experience. Now I do have to start to get something off my chest when it comes to this game. I don't really like the N64 version of Ocarina of Time. If you saw my Zelda tier list, then you know that I see absolutely zero reason to play the N64 version over the 3DS version. The 3DS version of the game is what the N64 version wanted to be, and from here on out I will be referring to the 3DS version for this video unless stated otherwise. The first thing I'd like to talk about with Ocarina of Time is the music. For me, a game's soundtrack is one of the most important elements. The music can transport you directly into the game if written right. As a musician and music major myself, I find good music in a game to be one of the highest qualities a game can have, and Ocarina is no different. Throughout this video, you'll hear music from the game to get a taste of it, but its true effect isn't truly realized until you play it. The Ocarina music is catchy and pretty, the Temple of Time commands an air of reverence and sacredness. The Forest Temple theme specifically might be my favorite video game song ever. It evokes a sense of mystery and wonder like no track has for me, and is the perfect fit to the mysterious and out there Forest Temple. This game doesn't just have a good soundtrack, it is an absolute masterclass in music and makes the game the masterpiece it is. Now, one of the many reasons I love Ocarina of Time is the opening segment. Every Zelda game has one, and their length and content can make or break the game for a lot of people. And sadly, 3D Zelda openings tend to drag on for a long time. Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword have notoriously long openings that drag for way too long. Ocarina of Time, on the other hand, has a short and sweet opening that does a perfect job of introducing you to all the systems you'll use throughout the game, without feeling like an overbearing tutorial. Needing to buy the Deku Shield shows you to gather rupees in the overworld, and the Great Deku Tree serves as a dungeon tutorial while still feeling like a competent dungeon on its own. And then you're off, thrust into the main story in record time for 3D Zelda. The progression of this game is one that keeps you pushing along and prepares you for future moments while not feeling like it's holding your hand. The child section of the game is handled in a way where it feels like a competent gameplay and dungeon crawling, but presents more toned down ideas of what you experience later in the game as an adult, making you always feel like the game is at a perfect difficulty, never too easy and never too hard. By the time you get to the end of the game, you're ready for everything, and that's paid off with the final dungeon being a mash of all the different ideas you faced in your journey, but harder. I'll be the first to admit the main points of the story can feel very run-of-the-mill and basic at times, but you have to remember that this game's existence is the reason why it feels like this. This game's story set the standard for what a Zelda story is. If you're a fan of DC, you might know Tim Drake, the Robin, who hasn't really been seen for about 20 years now, and part of that is he was so innovative and different than all of them before him that every time a new Robin is introduced, they kind of get elements of his character until he almost feels like a basic Robin. because all of the other ones have his elements. And I feel like that's kind of the same with Ocarina of Time, where people call it a basic game, but the only reason it feels basic is because it set the standard in the way it did. The level design in this game is so incredibly important to the gaming world and shaped the 3D adventure game genre forever. Both the overworld and dungeon design in this game are phenomenal. Hyrule Castle and Kakariko Village are two of the most iconic overworld areas in gaming history. Kakariko Village has so many little secrets and things to do with shops, mini-games, heart pieces, areas like the well, and of course the windmill with the Song of Storms. The 3 child dungeons, while probably the least favorites of the game, serve as great bite-sized mini dungeons to get enamored with the game. But the adult dungeons are where Ocarina of Time shines. The Forest Temple is so cool. This ancient, mysterious building, whose purpose is very ambiguous, serves as a perfect location for a dungeon, with the main objective to find the 4 posed and get the boss in the basement. And the twisted rooms and eerie corridors are accentuated by the masterful track that plays throughout, one that evokes wonder and mystery, and in my opinion is by far the best in the series. The Water Temple is one of the most hated dungeons in the Zelda series, and even that I think is a bit overhated. In the N64 version, it's definitely a pain in the ass to go through it, and I would say that its reputation is honestly justified. But in the 3DS version, which people should already be playing in my opinion, the main problem with the Water Temple, that being how you change your boots, is fixed. So I think the actual design in the Water Temple, while nothing special, is quite serviceable and really doesn't deserve the hate if you play the right version. This game also served as a true introduction for Ganondorf, the more humanized and cunning incarnation of Demise. This was the perfect first appearance for Ganondorf, not having a lot of screen time, only appearing in a few scenes before the end, letting his mystique and the idea of him kind of build as a, hey, I want to see this guy, and it kind of, he is a lingering presence over your journey, which honestly I think is the best way to have him instead of having him be a constant character. The characters of Ocarina consist of the first appearances of many iconic characters and character archetypes. Some memorable characters include Malon, Ruto, Darunia, Saria, Mito, and of course, Navi. What could be said about Navi that hasn't already been said? All you need to say is, hey, listen, to anyone who's done a playthrough of Ocarina of Time, and you'll get a visceral reaction to say the least. Like the Water Temple, while not perfect, I think Navi is overhated and has her place as both a helpful companion and a compelling and iconic character. The constant nagging is something that is, again, fixed in the 3DS version, and so in my playthroughs I tend to have a more fond disposition towards Navi. And let's face it, we all wish we had Navi instead of Tattle in Majora's Mask. The gameplay loop of Ocarina of Time is one that is stimulating and rewarding. Like the opening segments, the pacing of 3D Zelda games tend to involve a lot of meandering. And while Ocarina isn't without its slow points and backtracking, it's less often and more rewarding when presented. A good example of this is the back and forth over Hyrule Field. Both as a child and as an adult, you have to traverse Hyrule Field to get across to other areas, and it acts as a sort of hub at the center of the game's world. You immediately notice that while there are fun little puzzles and goodies to find, Hyrule Field is mostly barren, making traversal tedious and boring. Now some may argue that this is a mistake and it shouldn't be like this. Honestly, I'd agree. There is something to be said about the fact that this barren land makes the eventual acquiring of Epona the horse much more rewarding, turning Hyrule Field from an obstacle to a playground. On the topic of a rewarding gameplay loop, the items you get throughout the game give an extremely rewarding sense of progression. Every major struggle helps make you better, not just through experience and higher health, but through Link's ever-expanding arsenal of tools and weapons, all of which are used perfectly in and out of their dungeons. You feel a true sense of accomplishment not many games can replicate, as Link slowly opens the chest to triumphantly reveal his next item to help him on the journey. The implication of these items in boss fights really evoke the feeling that by the end of the game, you aren't the same kid from Kakiri Village you were at the beginning. The bosses in Ocarina of Time are an A-list of evil beings, some of the most iconic villains in all of Zelda, to the point where some would make multiple appearances after Ocarina, starting with one of the best first bosses, Goma. I've already touched on why the Great Deku Tree is such a great first dungeon, and Goma is just another reason why. It establishes how you'll need to use the items you've gained to hurt or stun the boss, instead of just using your sword, making you think on the move while not being very hard. The other two child bosses are also accomplished in this in different ways. Then, as an adult, the bosses are no longer training. They feel much more imposing. I'll admit none of them are too hard in my opinion, but they are so fun and the vibe is immaculate. Phantom Ganon is a perfect cap to the spooky, eerie forest temple. The weird, disturbing Bongo Bongo perfectly matches the story of the Shadow Temple being an old Gerudo torture prison. Twin Rova are very important to the story, as they've served as caretakers to Ganondorf. Volvagia the Dragon is especially fun, as throughout the Death Mountain storyline, you're constantly told about the wicked suffering he has inflicted upon the Goron tribe, making his death very satisfying. And of course, Demon King Ganon. What can truly be said about how great and iconic this final boss is? In dark moonlit lightning, with Hyrule Castle burning around you, you see this giant, evil, pig monstrosity, eyes burning through the darkness, wielding two large swords. It's an iconic, striking picture, and one that I'll admit might somehow be even better in the N64 version. I mean, look at this. And if you don't cheese the fight like a little baby, it's a very epic and harrowing final moment of the game, all ending with a quick and brutal sword to the skull. It's a very quick, almost unexpected ending for a game that, while dark, is generally more implied with its adult themes. Yet, this ending is very out in the open, and honestly, took me completely off guard the first time I saw it. But honestly, I think it's the perfect ending for a game like this. And that's basically it. A quick ending, and choosing to stay an adult or not, one that breaks the Zelda timeline into the monstrosity it is today, and end credits. For my money, possibly the greatest game of all time. Thank you so much for watching. Since this was the first time I've gone this route, I didn't want to be too long-winded. Plus, honestly, there are much better hour-plus long retrospectives out there. Personally, I'd recommend the ones by King K. He's amazing. Please let me know if you'd like to make more of these videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.